Off Clipper, hi friends, Darth Momo here, and today we're going to talk about the alleged review bombing of The Acolyte and whether it was treated unfairly by some of the reviews or if it really got what it deserved and this is just a narrative by Lucasfilm. Let's take a look. So we're going to look at Rotten Tomatoes, and as we see here, critics scores 80%, which I agree, far too high. Far too high. I don't think this was an 80%. In fact, actually, I think earlier in the weeks it was actually a little higher before the show completed. But looking at the audience score, 15%. That's crazy. That means 1.5 out of 10. If this was a 100 question test at school, this means they got 15 answers correct. That to me seems a little too far, but I mean, if you watched my season review, you'll see I gave it about a 6.8. But is this earned or not? You know, did a lot of people I know didn't like the show? Did it really deserve this? Well, let's look for comparison at some other Star Wars projects. The holiday special of Star Wars is almost universally regarded as one of the worst pieces of Star Wars media. I'm not going to say it's universally regarded as the worst. I think there's some difference on that. But it's universally regarded as pretty bad. Let's look at what it got on Rotten Tomatoes. A 24% audience score. I guarantee you, I'm willing to put money on it. Maybe not a lot of money, but I'd be willing to put money on it that a lot of people who gave The Acolyte poor scores on here haven't even seen the holiday special or sat through the whole thing. Maybe seen a portion here or there. I've sat through the whole holiday special. I couldn't sit through the whole thing. I had to actually, I've seen it all, but I had to watch it in 3 separate viewings. I watched the first maybe like 45 minutes, I watched the next 45 minutes, and then I finished it up across 3 different days. I could not sit and watch the holiday special in one viewing. There is no way The Acolyte is not only as bad as the holiday special, but according to Rotten Tomatoes' audience scores, worse. Worse than the holiday special. No way. Let's look at some other Star Wars projects that have been pretty universally ravaged by fans at the time of their release. And just to keep it generic, we're going to go with the prequels, the last 2 sequels, and then as for Disney Plus shows, we're going to go with like Ahsoka, and we can check out Mando Season 3 and Obi-Wan and Boba Fett. So I don't know why Acolyte's not on here, but they have the rest of the Star Wars stuff on here in one little collection. Let's look at the prequels. So yes, I know the prequels have kind of seen some sort of reappraisal now, but back then, or back when they first came out, they were pretty ravaged, and there's still a decent amount of people who don't like the prequels. So if we look at, I know Revenge of the Sith is more favorably looked at, so let's look at 1 and 2. Both The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones got their audience scores in the 50s, which I think at least Phantom Menace should be higher. Attack of the Clones should be a little higher too, but 50%. I would say based off of the general consensus online, that's probably about normal. Or that's probably about right that they got around those scores. Let's look at the Clone Wars film. The Clone Wars film, I know a lot of critics and audience didn't like. I personally don't know why. I think the movie's fine, but it got a 40%. So now let's look at The Last Jedi. I know the score is inflated on here for Rise of Skywalker. I think that's a little too high, but let's look at Last Jedi. I can't tell you how many YouTube videos are out there that call The Last Jedi a cinematic failure. One of the worst pieces of movie content ever created. An absolute abysmal of cinema, etc. You've seen the videos, you know. Yet The Last Jedi sits at a 41%. And The Acolyte sits at 16. So this score is not only double The Acolyte, but it's higher than double. Which, really? So then let's look at The Mandalorian season 3, because I know season 1 and 2 are pretty loved. Let's see if it breaks it down here. I thought it did. Oh, here we go. Season 3, 50%. And so I thought season 3 was pretty bad. Season 3 put me to sleep. So we see that. And then let's go to Ahsoka, and Boba got a 49%, and Ahsoka got a 64%. And I've seen YouTube videos. A lot of the talking points you're seeing now from Acolyte critics, I saw a lot of those when Ahsoka was coming out. Not all of them, but a lot of them were being pretty much recycled for the Acolyte as they were used with Ahsoka. So, does 15% seem a little out of place? Yeah, I think so. I think Acolyte is pretty on par with some of these projects, and to say that it's, like, let's take Last Jedi. A lot of people hate Last Jedi. A lot of fans hate Last Jedi. And according to these same fans, Acolyte is a lot worse than The Last Jedi, when you'll see a lot of these same talking points about Last Jedi and The Acolyte. So, was Acolyte review bombed? I think that's a fair point to say. Let's look at IMDb. For the 5th episode, the one that was pretty much just lightsaber action, a lot of what I saw online was more or less positive for this one. There were still complaints, but a lot of people praised the action for this one, and the lightsaber combat, and the choreography. And that's mainly what this episode was. It was a shorter one, and it was pretty much just a big, giant lightsaber duel with a bunch of people in it. And the highest rating it got was a 6.5. That's the highest rating for the whole show, a 6.5. And this is what I saw was pretty well received of an episode. I'm not saying it needs to be like a 9 or an 8, but a 6.5 seems just a tad low. And if you look on IMDb, the rest are going to be much lower. Yeah, we've got 4.5, etc. So, yeah, I think The Acolyte was pretty unfairly targeted. If we look at an article that discussed the whole thing back when The Acolyte first came out, we see on here, looking at the actual reviews, there's evidence of a review bombing campaign. Many appear to be AI generated, consisting of only basic plot synopses. A surprising number of half-star reviews on Rotten Tomatoes are from brand new accounts, another indicator of a review bombing campaign. And yeah, if you look at a lot of reviews, they're basic. And that's what I hate when I go to look at, like, going to an apartment or a restaurant and you just see a bunch of just 1-star reviews but no commentary. Well, then what the heck? And I'm not saying we can't negatively review something. Put in an insightful review. I watched the whole show. I gave a pretty insightful review. I didn't give it a very positive review. 6.8 isn't that good. But, I put some nuance into the review. And Lucasfilm has pretty much come out and more or less written off the reviews and pretty much said they're going to disregard them. And to a degree, I don't blame them, because clearly I think The Acolyte got some unfair treatment when you look at some of the other Star Wars shows. When you look at, like, The Last Jedi, there's no way you can tell me that Rise of Skywalker wasn't impacted by the poor reception of The Last Jedi. And I mean, even when you look at the reception of the last 3 Star Wars movies in box office, Last Jedi, then Solo, and then Rise of Skywalker, and then the fact that it's been, as of now, 5 years since a Star Wars movie's been in theaters, after doing one a year, and the fact that it's probably going to be at least another 2 years until another one gets back into theaters, to me it seems like they listened. And when you look at those audience scores, I would say that's a fair thing to listen to. But when you look at what The Acolyte got, it just seems so tipped negatively and unfairly. So I'm not one to necessarily defend The Acolyte and say it's got an 80%. I don't agree with that. But I think it's pretty clear that there was some sort of review bombing campaign. Is it as big as some people say? Jury's out, or still out on that one, and I don't know if they'll ever get in. But I think it's pretty clear that there was some sort of campaign and review bombing against Acolyte. So let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe I'll debate you a little bit. But I'm about ready to stop pouring my energy into fighting Acolyte criticism. So if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, you don't like it. It is what it is. Otherwise, thank you guys for joining in. Darth Momo out, and may the Force be with you. Always. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. If you liked the video, comment down below and hit that like button. Oh, and check out some of my other videos. I'm sure you'll find them delight.